Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the if function and also how we can nest the and or functions into or combining them with the if function. So as you can see we've got some data or some demo sales data in B and C. So we've got a sales rep and the revenue that they have generated, and we've got four other columns going from D through to G of scenarios where we want to use our if statement to flag and identify the varying revenues based on our criteria. So the first one we're going to look at is revenue that is greater than 10,000. So what we want to do by this is if the revenue is greater than 10,000, we want to return the value good into this column. So we're going to have a varying just good or a blank cell here. So in order to do this, it's quite simple. We just start with our if function. So equals if, open our brackets. And the first part is going to be our logical test. So all we need to do for this scenario is select our revenue that we've got in column C and use our greater than symbol that we can get by holding down the shift and the full stop button, and then type in the value 10,000. You could either reference a cell that contained the value of 10,000 or whatever value you want, but for our example we're just going to type in the number there, and then we can do comma to move into value if true, and all we're going to do in quotations is write the word good, and as I've got end of quotations there as well, and then for our value if false we're just going to do two quotations just so we get a blank result if the value is not meeting our criteria. We just want it to be blank, and then we can hit enter, and then when we drag that formula down our page you can see that we've now got goods for all of those that meet our criteria. So simply put, if the value is greater than 10, you can see we've got the word good beside it, and if the value is less than 10,000, you can see that it's got just a blank cell at the moment. If you didn't want a blank cell and you want to put something else in there, you could obviously put the word within these two quotations, so maybe bad, and then obviously that would populate that for you as well. So we'll move on to our next scenario, and as we go through these scenarios, you'll see the detail and the criteria will gradually increase as we move along. So for this one, we want to see, we only want to flag good if the revenue is greater than 10,000 and less than 15,000. So this is where we're now going to introduce our and function. So let's just jump straight in. So we've got equals if, open our brackets, and then this time in the logical test we're going to be using the and function. So all we need to do is type in and then open another bracket. And is separated, so we have varying logical tests. I mean, perform as many as we require, but for us we're just going to have the two. So the first part we're going to do is to check to see if our revenue is greater than 10,000, and then we'll do a comma whilst we're still within the and function to move on to the second logical test. And the next part is to see again is if this is less than 15,000. So I can now close the brackets there, and then we're now back into the if statement. So you can see that before I close the bracket, this was with the pop-up prompt we have, and then as soon as I go close brackets, we'll move back into the if, and we're now ready to hit that comma to move into the value if true. So get value if true is going to be good, and if we doesn't meet our criteria, then we'll simply just put in the blank again and close our brackets, and then we can close the function. So our criteria is it's going to be greater than 10,000 and less than 15. So we only expect to see the word good against those values that are between 10 and 15,000. So if we pull that down, we can now test to make sure that is correct. So we've got 14,532. So yeah, that's between our criteria. 18 isn't, 85 isn't. 15,000 isn't in our criteria because we're only looking for less than 15,000. So we'd need to put our equal symbol in if we wanted to do the 15 to include 15,000. So 14,500 works, and then 12 works as well. So just to touch on this 15,000 here, if we wanted to include if it's less than or equal to 15,000, all we need to do in the second part of our and function is where we've got our less than there, is just to enter an equal symbol, and you can see it'll now pick up the 15,000 because the criteria is now less than or equal to 15,000. So it's a real simple little update we need to make if we want to include the 15,000. Else we click enter, you can see it's not going to be included. So for our third scenario, in this time we can see, okay, we're looking for if revenue is greater than 10,000 and less than 15,000, we want to do good. So the same as what we previously had. But this time we also want to say, well, if revenue is greater than or equal to 15, we want very good to be our word, else display value for all others. So if the revenue is between 10 and 15,000, we're going to display good. If it's greater or equal than 15,000, we'll say very good, and then display the value for others. So basically, we're going to be displaying values for anything less than or equal to 10,000, in short. So how do we do that? Well, we start off very much the same. So we go equals if, and then we're going to start with our AND function as well. So we want to first test to say, is this greater than 10,000? And also, is it less than 15,000? If that is the case, then our true statement is going to be to show the word good. And then the value if false. So this time we're not going to be just entering a value, we're actually going to be nesting another if statement within our if statement to deal with our next scenario. So this next part is going to be another if statement, open brackets. And you can see that our prompt is now moving into our next if, so we can see where we are, and this point we're looking at the logical test. So what we now need to do is we need to go, okay, well if it's greater than or equal to 15,000, we now want to return the value very good. Else, so if value is false, we just want to display the value. So all we need to do is just select the revenue. So obviously if this criteria in these AND statements here and this last if statement here of greater than 15,000, none of those have been met, then all we're going to do is just display the value that we have in the revenue column. So once we're happy and finished with that, we just do a close bracket to end our second or our nested if statement, and then one final bracket to close our original if statement. And we can see we've now got the result of very good. So we can just now go back and we can see that formula in its entirety. So the first part is very much the same, or is exactly the same as our scenario had in column E. So we've got if, our two AND statements of if C7, our revenue is greater than 10,000 and the revenue is less than 15,000. So if that scenario will display good. If, however, none of those are met and our revenue is greater than or equal to 15,000, we want to display very good, and then lastly display the value. So let's just pull that down and we can go for each one and address it accordingly. So the first one is showing very good, and that's because our revenue is greater than 15,000. Second one, 7,500, yeah, so that's less than 10,000, so obviously it's falling outside of our original criteria. We've got a good here because it's between 10 and 15. 9 because it's less than 10, yes, 10, 10, and then we can see we've now got our greater than or equal to 15, so that's now obviously falling into our very good category. Again, less than 10, above 15, between 10 and 15, yes, and lower than 10. So we can see that that now has worked, and that's obviously given us the scenario we want, and obviously this is the results that you can see from that as well. The last one we have is if our revenue is greater than or equal to 15,000 or 15,000, or it's less than or equal to 10,000. So all we're really doing here is flagging those values that obviously are going to be above 15, lower than 10. So all we're really doing is blanking out those between 10 and 15. So a bit of a reverse to what we've been doing already. But this is a great scenario to let us use the OR function. So I'm just going to do equals if, open our brackets, and this time we're going to be using the OR function. So we'll open our brackets, and this works exactly the same as AND, it's just that it's going to, rather than requiring both values to be correct, it's only saying that one of these logical expressions has to be correct to return the true statement. So the first thing we need to do is select our revenue, and we want to say, okay, so if that is greater than equal to 15,000, or it is, again selecting it again before doing this, is less than equal to 10,000, and then close our brackets. So if one of those is true, we want to obviously return the true statement in our if function. So if that's the case, we want to display the word warning, close brackets, else just do a blank, and this is how our function looks. So you can see we've got our OR statement. So one of these two logical statements need to be true for the warning word to be displayed. else if neither are true, then we're just going to get a blank cell. So let's do that and pull that formula down. Cool, so we can see that everything that should be so basically the only ones that should be blank are those between 10 and 15. So we've got a 12 here, we've got a 14.5, and we've got 14.5. Yeah, so we're basically getting a warning for everything else. So that's just another example, or a example, sorry, to show you how the OR function is working. And let's just quickly go back through those so we can see them one more time. So revenue is greater than 10,000. So this is quite a simple, straightforward function or formula. All we needed to do is select our revenue and identify it's greater than 10,000, display a single value of good, if obviously it's correct, and blank if not. So greater than 10,000, less than. So we just used we just extended our original criteria, what we used in D, to include our AND function. So in our logical test we used AND, and we needed to make sure that both of these logical statements within the AND function were met for us to return a true statement from our logical expression in if, to then get our good text returned. For the third one, we used obviously the AND function, so exactly the same as we did in column E up until the word good. And then after that, we nested a second if statement to then do a comparison of greater than equal to 15,000 to see if we'd got a very good rating, else we just returned the value in C7 and made sure we closed those brackets off twice so we could close off the original if, or no, the nested if, and then lastly the original if statement. And the last one we looked at is the OR. So all we did is nested OR within our logical expression of the if statement to ensure that one of these logical expressions were met for us to return a true statement within our if formula, so we could return a warning text if the logical tests were met, else we displayed a blank. So we hope that this wasn't skimmed too quickly. I hope I was in detail, but keeping it nice and concise. If you do have any questions at all, please drop a comment below this video. Alternatively, there are links to our Facebook, Instagram, and our website in the description for this video. There's also some other links in that description as well, so why not check them out? But most importantly, if you do have any questions, you can get in contact with me there as well. Lastly, if you haven't already, please do make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification button so you're notified of all of our future videos, and well, even more lastly, so if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to give the video a like. It's not only greatly appreciated by myself and lets you know what content you'd like to see more of, but also it's going to really help the channel in terms of the YouTube algorithm. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Before you go, don't forget to check out the other videos on our channel. You'll see everything from other functions and formulas through to tips and tricks. We've also created some playlists so you can see these categorized together, so make sure you check those out and get all those useful information. And obviously, as always, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification button.